Graham, where are you, Graham? Okay, so, oh yeah, so your questions were quite funny, actually. It did make me giggle. One of Graham's questions was, Neil, you were quite reserved at Hammersmith Odeon on the Mechanics tour. I think it must have been about 1980 or 80, that's probably about 82, actually, Graham. By 1983, in Chippenham, you turned to Pete Way on rhythm guitar. Was that deliberate, or did it just happen? I think confidence plays a bit of a part in that. I probably did start to move around the stage a lot more. You know, I think obviously you've got someone like Pete who's like, you know, God, where is he? Where is he? You know, he's everywhere. And I think when Pete wasn't around, it was sort of, we needed a little bit more movement on that side of the stage, maybe. So that was partly the reason. I can't help myself is another reason. I think, you know, a question of just, once you get, even now, once I get the guitar on, which is why I didn't like playing the keyboards as much, because I actually like rocking out with, you know, down with the kid, you know, the fans. I say kids, probably not maybe kids now, but the fans, you know, down in the audience. You know, I really do enjoy that part of it, you know, because what I tend to think is you're there to, you're entertaining, you're playing the music, but you've done most of the donkey work in the studio and rehearsal, whatever. So when you get to playing live, no one wants to look at a bunch of statues. You know, I like to be the cheerleader. I like to sort of see a bit of movement in your audience, and I feed like a vampire on the energy of the audience. You know, so I really enjoy that. So I suppose by that point I'd grown my wings a bit, and I look at some things from like the Gary Moore time, and I'm Pete. You know, so I did get a few of my moves from Pete. I got a few of the shapes, but I used to move a lot with Gary in the first years. You know, not so much in the last tour we did on 2010, because he tended to stand in one place. But I sort of had to do this, and I did not move very much because it was a bit strange. But yeah, so yeah, and Chippenham. Why Chippenham? Again, Chippenham, which was in the West Country, was again a staple of the touring sort of touring circuit. I did a video there with Gary Moore, a sight and sound in concert at Chippenham. Gold Diggers, what a venue! But I don't really remember too much about it, Graham. If I'm honest, I don't. I just have very limited memory recall on Gold Diggers. I just remember doing that more. I remember that. If I didn't remember, I played there with UFO. I had to look it up. But I remember doing the gig with Gary because that was. A White Knuckle Ride, because it was streamed live on TV and radio, so that was a bit of a what was going to happen, you know. But yeah, I don't remember playing there with UFO too much. Paul Gray playing the bass on that on Chippenham. Paul was a great guy. He was very nice bloke as well, very solid. Probably suited us a lot more than Billy Sheehan. As much as I love Billy Sheehan, as talented I think Billy is, Billy's more of a, you know, he's a busier bass player, and I think Paul, to be honest, tended to hold it down for us a little bit more. You don't need all that stuff, you know. Or as good as it is, you just need a very basic sort of solid thing with UFO, which is we get from Rob and Pete, bless him. And so Paul was very good in that respect. You mentioned the Damned. In fact, we bumped into Paul, didn't we, at Sweden Rock last year? Yeah, Paul. Yeah, Paul.
Was it Wacken? I think it was Wacken, wasn't it?
Oh, maybe Wacken. But yeah, I suppose you asked me whether we thought we could draw any comparisons with UFO and the Damned. Probably, I have never really thought of it, Graham, in that respect. We had Pete Vicious on the bass at one time, but I don't think so myself. I think there's a little punk element to UFO. Because there's a bit of sort of like, oi, you know, let's get on and do it. And Gary Bushell always liked the band, so he was a bit of an oi, wasn't he? He was a bit, he liked all that the punk ethic. But there was a little bit of the punk ethic with UFO. But I cannot see that myself as much. But maybe I just haven't thought about it. I've never heard Alone Again All. I tend to be, as Kate knows, on a need-to-know basis. So I tend to only know the things that I need to know at one time. So I might have a look at Alone Again. But when I came to the set list, to learning the set list for UFO this time round, I hadn't heard any of the albums in between. So all the new stuff, like Venus, Burn Your House Down, to me it's new. Baby Blue, Freddie, all these things. Yeah. But they were all a complete mystery to me. So I had to go and listen to those because I hadn't heard a UFO album since Making Contact. Isn't that dreadful? I just didn't follow any of it. I just didn't, it was a need to know thing on my part. So yeah, from that, so then at that point I had to learn it all. So yeah, so happy days. I'm just trying to think what else, if there's anyone we don't have, maybe I can answer the question. We are missing a couple of punters, so or people. A couple of Paul, I'm looking at Paul, a couple of personal questions, nothing too major. A guy called Paul Raffanello, what do you think of when you see photos of you in the 80s with UFO and Gary Moore? And why? I get slightly shocked when I see some of them. I think some of the outfits were a little over the top and a bit outre. The worst being 1984, I've got to be honest, the leg warmers and cut-up T-shirts and things like that. It wasn't a good look. I don't think it was of its time. So I do get the horrors sometimes when I look, and the hair, my God, the hair. Again, it was more, we used to have a flight case with Gary Moore, and it had a whole massive bit of the trunk full of hairspray. So, we'd be zhuzhing up at the hair and backcombing the hair before the gigs. And terrible, but I suppose, it was of its time, I suppose. I think my hair looked a bit better in UFO days, to be honest. I think it was a bit more, as Mark's is. I think Mark's got very good hair going on there. I think it suited me better in those days than some of the Gary Moore abominations that were, sort of inspired by new romantic and God knows what music. Oh, shocking, absolutely shocking. And a guy called Brad Lemerand, and it's probably a good way to finish actually. He said, it may sound odd, but I pretty well know most things about Neil Carter's career. What I would like to ask Neil about is his lifestyle, such as, hold on, where does he get so much energy on stage? Neil looks healthy and fit. Does he work out, run, ride a bike? Does he have a healthy diet, habits? Is he a vegetarian? None of the above. So I have the cake diet. I eat cake. I have probably a very high metabolic rate. So I am in a continual thing to try and keep weight on. And I don't run. Definitely not. I don't. Well, we do walk occasionally because we've got lovely walks in Lanzarote. So we do walk occasionally, but I don't have a careful diet. I just tend to just eat what I eat. And I'm probably weighing a bit less than I did this time last year. I'm probably about a stone, which is 14, 16 pounds less than I was last year because I've done all this leaping about, as Phil and I call it, swanning about the world behaviour. And so we're swanning about and we're leaping about on stage and pulling the shapes. But I probably maybe a bit fitter than I was this time last year. But you have to be very careful, particularly during this lockdown, not to overeat, because it's so easy to just sit there and pig out, sort of out of boredom, I suppose, more than anything else. So what I've done is I've gone into my studio. We have a separate apartment in this house, and I made it into my studio. So I've gone in and done a bit of writing and tried to use the time usefully rather than waste it eating. So, but I'm sure we've had all of us been in the same position, haven't we? So, you've got to think about what you're doing and where you're locking down and whatever. But Spain has today gone back to what they call the new normal. So we've got no restrictions on us, particularly apart from having to wear masks outside. So, and where I live, we've been very lucky because Lanzarote has been cut off. We're in, I don't know, most of you probably know where it is, but it's in the middle of the Atlantic. It's in a group of islands, and we're part of Spain. We're 1,000-something miles from Spain, so we're very, very long way away from Spain here. So it's the ideal place to retire, I think. It was until I got pulled back into it all. So, but it's been a great pleasure. It's been a great pleasure. Apart from that, I don't think there's anything else. I think we've done very well here. We've done extremely well. One other thing, Pete Mayer asked me about auditions for UFO and Gary Moore. When I went to UFO, I played Lights Out and Only You Can Rock Me on the Hammond organ, which I'd never even seen before. And I had to sort of twiddle a few bits, and the guitar technician told me how to make a sound on it. I had no idea, and I busked my entire way through that audition. and then play the guitar. With Gary, I was a bit further along then, so I think we played Wishing Well and a couple of other bits and pieces, but it was almost a foregone conclusion, like me doing my usual thing of just falling into things. I fell into UFO because they asked me. I fell into Gary because he asked me. So it was basically not really auditions that sort of run through, just to see if it was all right and got on or whatever. But and then I fell into teaching, I fell into everything. So I fall into things a lot. That's my way of going. That's my way of going on, to be honest. Yeah. So, as there's only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Anyone got anything else they'd like to ask before we end this farrago? Anything?
I'd like to do any cat judging.
Oh, hi, Guy. How you doing? The cat. How fantastic! My cat judging. Actually, it's a beautiful cat. My God, I just noticed. I noticed her.
Fold.
Sorry.
Peak-eared Scottish fold.
Yeah, Scottish Fold, fantastic, beautiful. I do still judge cats very occasionally when I'm asked, but of course we're not in England anymore. So I don't get the chance, you know, I just very rarely get the chance to do it. I enjoy it when I do, but there's this thing about if you don't use it, you lose it. And there's a lot of information I have to have in here. And I haven't judged for quite a while. And of course, there's no catchers in England at all at the moment. There won't be any for the foreseeable future. So I did enjoy it. It was part of my breeding cats. It was part of my life. I really enjoyed it. It was a beautiful cat, really. Absolutely beautiful. Oh, bless. Oh, baby. Yeah, so again, it didn't really go hand in hand with rock and rolling, but one of those things, you know, one of those things you have to do. Yeah, that's good. Wendy, did you want to ask something? You were waving.
Oh, I was going to ask, that album that you and Andy and Tonka did right after UFO in '83 that you started recording, but then you went off to Gary Moore and Andy went off to Scarlett. And
Yeah, we did. Yeah, we did. Yeah, Paul, Andy, and I, towards the end of the tour in 1983, the final UK tour, had intentions of getting together and carrying on in some shape or form. But I think the events of that year sort of worn us all down a little bit. You know, all of us were a little bit sort of battle scarred and you know, sort of in shrapnel wounds all over us. And we did record, I think, 4 tracks together. But Andy needed to get back to America. Paul needed to get back to America. And I'd had an offer from Gary Moore to go off and do this. It wasn't a permanent gig with Gary. It was just a question of him saying Don Airey couldn't do the tour of America, and it was Def Leppard, Crocus and ourselves. And I thought it would be a great chance to get to play with Gary and Ian Pace. I was a great fan of Ian Pace's, so it was a great opportunity. And so Paul and Andy and I went down and did these tracks. I was going to do the singing, but I've never had, and my partner warned me about being too self-deprecating, but I've never really had full confidence in myself as a singer. I was fine doing the bits I did with Gary Moore, the sort of sharing the vocals with him, but I'm not a frontman in the traditional sense, although my first band, Wilder, I was a singer. But over the years, I sort of decided that really it's not my thing. And, you know, when you stand next to someone like Phil, who's such a good frontman, and then you've got Gary, who was a good frontman guitarist, you know, I don't see myself like that. So in reality, we got the tracks done, but I didn't really see it having legs long term, which is a shame because I like working with them both. And then ironically, the thing with Gary took off, you know, so and they wanted me to do it, and Gary's career was really in the ascendant at that point. It was really building, and I liked working with Gary. It was so different to how UFO had been in that last year or so, you know, and it was just a bit of a breath of fresh air for me, you know. And perhaps we need to do different things, you know, we do, and it was just a very healthy thing for me to join up with Gary. But in the end, there was one riff that became Murder in the Sky, is one of Gary's things. One of the songs Paul took to Wasted, and it's a thing called So Long, which was a slow track. And Paul always said, which isn't strictly true, that Empty Rooms was one of those songs, but in fact it wasn't. It was something that I'd written when I was with UFO, but it was just me and the producer, and I just sat in there. I just did a fiddling around bit, but it was never intended for UFO because we had a slow song on Making Contact. So that just went in on the shelf, and then Gary needed a slow song for Pictures of the Future, and that's how that became one of Gary's songs, which in a way has worked out very well for me over the years, because it got re-recorded so many times and was a hit single in England. I think it was a hit single in a few countries. So that to me was a great thing to have sort of played a part in. So that's good. So there we go. So those songs, those tracks, I still have those tracks. I think they're on YouTube somewhere. Those tracks of UFO. But I'd much as I would love to, I would love to do, sing a lot more. But I'm quite happy to let Rob. I let Rob do all the backing vocals that I used to do now, because I'm quite happy not to. I'm quite happy just to play. And there was a lot for me to do initially when I went back to the band. And Rob's been doing it for 11 years, so I couldn't. Wouldn't feel happy saying to Rob, "Oh, let's do it." It's sort of, it's good. Rob does them really well, so it's great. Let's see. Anything else, guys? We're coming towards the 10. Well, so we had 10 minutes. I allotted an hour. So anything else you'd like to ask me? Very welcome. Very welcome.
I've got one question, if I may, which is obviously now the tours have been disrupted and perhaps some dates are going to be played next year. Fingers crossed. Is there any chance of persuading Phil to do a few last dates in the UK, for example?
Petition. I know you ought to do a petition, like a crowdfunding petition, to convince him. I've got to be. There are probably quite good reasons behind the sort of thought process that UFO did a 5-week tour. 5-week UK tour, wasn't it, Kate? Was it 5 weeks? Yeah, and I think. In all honesty, I think Phil, as a gentleman and scholar, would feel you'd end up being like Frank Sinatra, doing like this never-ending farewell tour. So I think in the first instance, it was thought that when we were doing the summer dates in Europe or whatever, that there wouldn't be any dates in the UK again. I do not say yes or no myself. I mean, I would love to do something. I think, maybe other members of the band would. It's very much up to Phil, and I respect that 100%. So I think it really is a question of if there was something that made sense, then it would be great. But I think Phil being, we're all very British in this respect. We tend to think, no, you can't take it in the mick. You can't take the piss. You've already done 5 weeks and say bye-bye. You can't then go back and say, "Oh, here again." So I think it has to be tempered with a bit of common sense. But of course, the band is different. It's a different band now. I don't know. I don't know. But it is. I think it's a lovely idea, Graham. I think I would quite like to, but I think we just have to wait and see how Phil feels about it. Phil, my respect for Phil is never ending. I think, because therefore I think he's been around the block. We've all been around the block, but I think Phil has been there, done bought lots of t-shirts. And I think, to give him his due, I think we should respect how he feels about it. And if he doesn't feel it's appropriate, then all well and good, all well and good, because I think he's done his bit. And I think had they not done such a long tour, I think it would be perhaps more of a thing, So, but I'm quite happy to see that we're doing next year. We're going to be doing some festivals in Germany, possibly in Spain. There is one planned for October in Palma de Mallorca, which you think was near me, but it's about 3 flights. And it's about 1,000-something miles, 1,200 miles. But that would be really nice to do, I think, and maybe some more German ones in Germany, because they seem to like the band. In my time with UFO, we hardly ever played Germany, hardly ever. But Germany seems to be quite a thing now for the band, doesn't it, Kate? It seems to be quite a popular destination, which passed me by completely because we never went there. So we haven't done anything in France. We've not done anything in Italy. And there's some dates planned for Greece, Athens, that'll be fun, and Bulgaria. Athens. I've not been to Athens since 1983. So if they remember, I should wear a mask, Wendy, so they can't see me. But I haven't been there since that fateful time. So that'll bring back some memories, I think. Yeah. But they're partly very, very funny memories. But and look at however many years down the line, approaching 40 years down the line, they become funnier when you start thinking about them. You go through all the angst, and then the memories are quite funny going on in years to come. So. So that's that. Anyway, but I would love to speaking for myself. I would love to. I'd love to do some more dates in America. Whether we do or not, I don't know. There's always ideas pop in. We were going to go to India weren't we, to do this one date in India. And I thought, so we'd leave one day, stay there 2 days, come back. And it's a hell of a long way to go just for one day, but it was on the cards. But of course, then the COVID thing happened, and of course we couldn't do it. You know, I think all of us were relieved to get off the cruise. We actually got off the cruise because there were visions of us being stuck on that boat for how long, you know, because it was building. I mean, I think Phil really was the one that took it the most seriously. Back in February, you know, I was thinking, oh, well, you know, who knows? It might do this, it might do that. It could go any way. But in fact, Phil was very wise. You know, Phil took it very seriously. You know? So I think we're all happy we got home safe and sound from the American tour. So yeah, but yeah. Anything else, folks? We're all looking. Yeah, we all said everything we wanted to say.
It'd be quite nice to see another one of these. Whether it's with yourselves or with a couple of the guys, it'd be great.
Yeah, it would be great actually. Yeah, I mean, I don't know whether. I mean, Vinny's always up for a laugh. You know, he'd be. I don't know whether we get Phil to press the right buttons. Will be.
No.
Yeah, bless him. So, but you never know. You never know. But no, Vinny's always. I mean, you might get. It's nice because then you'll get some different aspects from Vinny. Vinny's had quite a very diverse career as far as I can see. You know, so Vinny would be a great one to get on one of these, and I'm sure Rob would like to do it as well. So, and Andy, maybe I don't know. I mean, down from Granbury, Texas.
Pressing the buttons situations without.
Yeah, pressing the buttons. Yeah, oh, yeah. Yes.
You just tell him it's a drum kit. He just does this.
Yeah, it just does that. Yeah. No, I see. Yeah, no. Do you know? I had not realised. And again, you know, I played with more drummers and have had hot dinners. What a powerhouse Mr. Parker is. I cannot believe standing on the stage with Andy, the power that guy puts into the drum kit. I mean, my absolute props to him. You know, really unbelievable over the years. You know, I mean, I played with a lot of drummers. I mean, a lot, but there's something about Andy's playing. It's just whoa! It's just like this thing that kicks you from behind. You know, to play with him. It's absolutely incredible. I didn't appreciate it at the time. I really did not appreciate it at the time. You know, he's how old's Andy now? 68 is he now? Yeah, is he 68 or 9K? I don't know. Yeah, look on Wikipedia. But I mean, you're not fit, and you know, he really does. It's like, what? You know, so yeah, he's great. He's great to have there. So, but pressing buttons, I don't know whether that's his forte or not. Who knows? Yeah, good. Okay, guys, it was really lovely to talk to you all. Really, really lovely. I hope I haven't waffled. Kate, have I waffled?
You've been brilliant. I'm actually so impressed.
Surprised or impressed?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah,
Can't wait until we're all on the bus again. It's just
absolutely
been
yes, that's right. Yeah. Time will come. Well, it will come. Time it will come. I must admit, I don't know how all you've felt, but at the beginning of this, I actually felt this pit in this feeling in the pit of my stomach. Absolute. Oh no, you know. But as time's gone on, I mean, we've moved on quite quickly here. But I'm hoping that we'll all, you know, we will, as the Queen said, we will meet again. Mm-hmm. We will all meet again. So yeah, so hopefully we will. Yeah, we'll be rocking in a city near you.